And welcome to the All In 2024 review. We are the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture. I'm Adam Wilborn, joined by Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, here to review everything that happened at this weekend's AEW All In pay-per-view. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Where we do daily wrestling podcasts where we not only review AEW Dynamite, but also AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0. Pay-per-views, premium live events. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a big good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. As I said, though, joined by Hamflett and Sidgwick to review AEW All In. Gents, what a weekend that was.
Yeah, in terms of the wrestling I experienced, the interactions I had with friends and fans and listeners and viewers, one of the times of my life. One of the absolute times of my life. Absolutely phenomenal weekend. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to the live show and I chatted to afterwards. We literally could not do this without you. Please keep watching. I want to do this until when I'm 64. They're reforming, aren't they? So that's good. No, honestly, absolutely unbelievable time. I'm absolutely exhausted. I feel like I've got just enough energy for this podcast. We're doing some WWE coverage as well later this afternoon. But in terms of AEW specifically, right, you know, I've had this sort of malaise is the word surrounding the promotion for a pretty long amount of time now. On that show, wasn't all like this. There were moments of absolutely peak of their fucking powers AEW stuff, like the absolute peak of what, in my opinion, remains the best promotion ever, is capable of. They reached it, I would say, twice. Some like merely unbelievable, excellent stuff beneath that tier, but twice they reached that. Only this promotion can give you that goddamn feeling. Certainly in the US. Aye. Unbelievable as a weekend. Unbelievable vibe show.
Yeah, the vibes were magic, and that's not to discount the quality of the stuff on it, as we're going to get to. There was simply no comparison. Like, outside of the opener and the main event of last year's show, yeah, you kind of felt a little bit vindicated for your criticisms, and it wasn't just...
I felt vindicated then and there.
It wasn't just Mr. Bean looking asses. It was like people watching going, oh, this isn't as special as it should be, other than the sheer size and scale of it.
I was going to ask you about that, because obviously I didn't get to go last year, and I loved going this year, and I wondered if that was just the case. It was my first go in Wembley seeing AEW, or whether this... how this compared to 2023. We
were speaking to people after our live show, which again, we'll constantly wedge into this because we're also riding high of how amazing that was. But speaking to people about if this was the first one or if they'd gone last year and how did they feel different. Like, everybody before they even went in the building was treating this one differently. They said, oh, the vibe's totally better this year. I'm like, I was really excited just to see it last year, but this year... it's the matches. Like, you were asking people what they were most into, and they were giving you different matches and different reasons why. How you should actually feel about a wrestling show beyond the sheer specialness of it and the uniqueness of it, as was the case for the first time around. So the vibe was different before getting in the building. And then I think that, for the most part, played out on the show as well, which really, really helped. From quite early on, to be honest, it didn't, of course... 50,000 people looks and feels different to 80,000 people. But with that being less of a thing to concentrate on, you were left to look at the ring and you were left to look at the action and ponder it and stuff like that. So I think it helped in every single respect. Honestly, I got back and I was thinking, right, well, there it is. We've been all lucky enough to experience kind of every version of the WrestleMania weekend in America and how that's become Destination Pro Wrestling for that one time a year. And AEW have done it, and done it in the UK, which feels more special for us. Talked before, like, we can be an overly discerning bunch at the best of times, but especially in our pro wrestling, because typically we've been made to wait for it. We've been made to watch it at unsociable hours. And like, I love both, by the way. I love the American fans' relationship with wrestling as much as I love ours, but they are different. And WWE, up until now at least, have never particularly tried to cultivate what they've got with a WrestleMania weekend over here in quite the same way. AEW this year, even more than last year, I would say, have done it. And it's made me a lot sadder than I was that they're not going to be back next year. Market-wise, I think it's smart. I think it probably, like, we just have to be realistic about where AEW's at commercially. Maybe that year break will help, but I cannot wait to welcome them back for 2026 because the buzz across the city. London's a scattered and difficult city to make it feel like anything has taken it over, but it did feel like I was able to go to RevPro on the Saturday, different parts of London where wrestling things were happening. and it did honestly feel like the city was for pro wrestling, and we don't get that over here.
No.
You have to credit AEW. You know, it requires that central destination. Maybe
And the working relationships that they actually take seriously as well.
The things they've cultivated and the way that like wrestlers have been able to like work with AEW and then work with other companies, and how Rev Pro have become like AEW's like UK affiliate almost. And the news of on Friday, when the first people that wanted to go and just get to Wembley and have a look were greeted with the, like, this is a rare marketing win for AEW, were greeted with the sign that Forbidden Door was going to be there. That buzz was out. AEW never do that. So they got that right as well. The Cardiff Dynamite as a lead-in ended up as a massive over-delivery on expectations. So really when they needed it, like I would say the overall AEW come to the UK for the better part of a week was a home run. Honestly, like even when parts of the show didn't quite deliver, the overall experience of it was like a much needed, like creative, commercial and optics success for All Elite Wrestling.
And the embracing of the UK fans certainly extended to some great surprises on this show, which we'll get into in due course. But we have to start on the pre-show, basically, with the return of Jamie Hater, Sidge.
Yeah, we missed it.
We missed it.
We missed it, let's be perfectly honest. That's because what we do on this podcast.
The reasoning behind it was because we thought that would eventually happen if it was going to happen, would either happen in the Britt Baker match or just at some point during the main card. And we thought, well, there's the match is finished. There's the gap for us to nip to the bar before.
Yeah, well, we didn't nip to the bar though, did we?
I was just looking at Nicholas because I just thought you two were being I think you deserve credit for missing that because you were both discerning enough to be like, I don't want to watch Saraya talk. Like, I admire that. Like, I sat there thinking, why am I sitting through this garbage? And then I was rewarded with a fluke Jamie Hater appearance.
Yeah, we didn't go to the bar. We did have a lot of beers, obviously, total lads. But at this point, we got chicken tendies instead.
That's right, yeah.
Really good, those tendies look good.
Decent for stadium grub.
Yeah.
It was top notch.
It was.
So I missed the goddamn return of Jamie Hater, so Hamlet, you can take this one.
It was amazing. It was weird.
It was notable what she didn't do.
Yeah, of course. We'll maybe get to how that might have benefited her, truthfully, later on. Certainly in the moment, it felt odd that she was completely separate from that thing we're going to talk about. But ultimately, I guess you've set up an easy Dynamite / pay-per-view comeback. It's not a squash, but it's going to be an obvious win for her. And the physicality looked good. I think this is one of the things where, because she's not coming back in a match and she's coming back for an appearance, you don't necessarily need to be cleared, but because she's been out so long, it comes with that worry of, I hope everything's all right. But immediately you just sense physically she's good to go. The pop was amazing. The music still rules. She looked awesome. She's got the exact same. I know she changes the look a little bit aesthetically, but from the very beginning, going back to her first AEW debut and all the changes she's had, her entire the front she puts out is kind of what's always gotten her over with people in the first place. She knows how to project. So the fact that she was arriving at the stadium that she was robbed of last year, and the building was pretty much full.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to get a bigger and maybe fuller-throated pop halfway through the show when everybody's there, but it was full enough, and everybody wanted to see Saraya. It's that weird wrestling kayfabe thing where she's not exactly the most popular real-life figure, so there's this thing where that worked beating that was carefully planned and discussed beforehand is justice and vindication for the bad things she's done in real life. It was a nice moment, ultimately very well judged, and just very, very, very satisfying, as we'll get with other people on this show in an even bigger way. Here to get in Wembley was overdue and deserved and just nice.
Also want to give a quick nod from all three of us to Willow Nightingale, Tomohiro Ishii, Statlander and Stokely Hathaway.
That was the best match of the pre-show that I watched. I mean, every single goddamn time he's a magician. Tomohiro Ishii is like, I just took a spine buster off Stokely Hathaway. I didn't expect, of course he's no selling. Of course I'm about ready to get that shirt off. I'm going to pop that shirt off and, just bleed. Just a lot of fun. Statlander was killing Ishii with those forearms as well. I was like, can that be a match?
But the main card started with the four-way London ladder match for the Trios Championships. The defending champions, of course, the Patriarchy versus the Bing Bing Ging, the House of Black and Pac and the Blackpool Combat Club. This was just chaos, wasn't it? Lot of love for Pac, as we alluded to earlier. Just
again, the story about your heart was breaking for him because the story about the Death Triangle inclusion in the trios match
and inevitable title win from what we've read today.
And then they left it so late.
Well, we read it a few weeks ago when Ibu.
Granted.
Broke. They left it so late for them to get in the match. You really had come at the conclusion that, it's just going to be a singles title win all out, and he's not the guy to maybe kind of the story of his career a little bit. Sometimes things just don't time out the way that they should for him. So sentiment won out, but sometimes it should. And I think this was a case of that.
Sort of surprise and not surprise then, because like you say, Death Triangle would have made all the sense in the world, but I don't think I went in thinking, oh, well, they'll just do it with BCC and PAC.
Yeah, I didn't think
with Claudio and Yuta.
I didn't think they would, but it's one of those where it's kind of an indictment of the division where it's like, it's only the trios belt. You can do a temporary switch with two like disparate acts in one trio that didn't get along last year or whatever.
Zack Ryder and Awesome Truth getting the night with the belts just to win, just to like, this will look good for a night.
Yeah, stop talking about the Fed. The match itself, the cynical and quite frankly accurate take was fun, just a multi-man ladder match, but in the building it was just a total vibe again.
Canadian Destroyer through a table, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, it was also like Nick Wayne like 8 on that one as well.
Juice Robinson destroyed his cack and ball.
Yeah, he got no cack left, unfortunately.
boy.
For him. Unfortunately for him, his cack is no longer with us.
It remained in England.
Almost got the Nick Wayne's mom, who did have it going on, almost grabbing the belts.
And then she almost went through a table, at which point I said, bump me, a mother. Got a huge pop out of this guy. Gets a pop about 50% of the time. No, this was the cynical take, which is not really inaccurate, was a very fun multi-man ladder stuff. But when you're there in the building, Brody King's really over. PAC was massively over. Christian Cage is absolutely hilarious, not for the first time that night.
Such a long run to the backstage. Like, really,
oh, yeah.
He was jogging for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that made it on TV because I haven't watched it back yet. But when everyone was watching him, it's like, he's still running. He's still going.
You got some really, really fun, witty character moments. You weren't shortchanged on some absolutely unhinged spots. As with a lot of these pay-per-view AEW matches, you did sense there's an extra 2 or 3 minutes like sort of buried in there that you might not necessarily need. And apparently we were very high up, which will come into the review later, trust me. Apparently the ladders were tiny and almost distractingly so.
I sort of thought that at one point.
Yeah.
Because the big one knocked the belts. It was so big, which I thought was a nice comedic visual for like, man, this ladder's that huge. But maybe it was just because the other ones were so small by comparison.
Yeah. Are those ladders smaller? They're just far away.
So this is when the benefit of attending there live comes into it, because we had a blast watching this. But on telly, maybe I would have been good, not great. It was a great time. Honestly, I just felt the love of pro wrestling sort of envelop me all over again on Sunday night.
A little bit surprising that we got the AEW Women's World Championship match next, but judging by the reaction it got...
Sidgwick. That's because wrestling's back.
Yes.
It's wrestling calling for the first time in months, and he answered.
Yeah. I don't know why I've got my alarm for 25-1, because I set it for like 9:30 after getting bed at 4 a.m. on Sunday. God knows, maybe it's an old dinner message.
And we were roommates. Yeah, again, me and Sidge.
We're good roomies, aren't we?
We're good roomies. Hey. But anyway, Tony Storm, Mariah May.
Good roommate.
Rumors.
Women's World title.
It's good, mate.
Like I say, surprised that they put it here initially, but it worked.
I said on our preview podcast, which we did on a stage in front of 400 plus people.
Oh my God.
Who did that when we pressed invisible buttons, which I'll never get tired of. I genuinely believe these two had it in them to walk that difficult tightrope of the violence and the not cinematic, the cinema.
Yeah, you have to be careful when you say certain words. Like you have to go like, story, not like that, not like that.
The cinematic adjacent stuff because of the story that they told along the way, the theme of the whole story. And they did it. They absolutely did it. They are both too hard-hitting and violent to let the theatrics and the drama completely overwhelm it. So every time they leaned into that side of it, it was one horrendously stiff strike away from just being a fight. They nailed this. I wasn't a huge fan, I would say, of like the first half of the show, possibly out of like a little bit of like tiredness. I don't think that was like the universal.
We got a huge adrenaline dump after the show. A huge adrenaline dump.
So I don't think that's the universal fan experience.
No,
It just took me a little bit of a while to like emotionally connect with the show, having started with the pre-show and all that kind of thing. This was the first point at which I started to like really, really feel things because they just nailed so much of this. The points at which I thought Mariah May was beat because they were going through so many of the typical beats of what you see, like right now, Toni Storm's back in control. They played really nicely.
Just busted open as well.
Yeah. I thought here they played really nicely with how inexperienced they wanted you to think Mariah May was. There was points in this match where, like, when it was theatrical, it was mainly Toni Storm lamenting the loss of this prodigy and this understudy and their friendship and their love and all of that.
Or comforting Mariah May's own mother.
Yeah.
Jesus. When a stiff shot.
When it got violent, it was because Mariah May was having to fight back. And you think, well, that dynamic shouldn't work because she's the heel. But in reality, it was because she was the one prepared to be nastier. And ultimately, that plays into the finish when she just drills it over and over and over again. And it's that. I wouldn't say it was a subversion because we've seen how skilled and violent Mariah May is. But Toni Storm, yet again, the true, and I mean, like it was in any doubt after this show, the true ace of that division, maybe then now forever, because she's just an unbelievably gifted wrestler at being able to not just be timeless Toni Storm, this character that's gone over beyond pretty much anyone in the division's history, but still be Toni Storm, the wrestler that came in 2021, 2022 and started. It's just like, it's kind of like stealing the show in-ring wise as well. Like sold her absolute arse off.
Absolute arsehole
for Mariah May's offense. Like,
it was a headbutt exchange as well, I remember.
Like, so again, had to be that violent so that you never got lost in the camp and the drama of it. On another night, this has stolen Wembley. Genuinely, I haven't watched this back on television yet. I might go to this first. Like, I'm so excited to see this back and see the stuff that we maybe didn't get the benefit of the screens. What they were like, we caught the Luther middle finger.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But a lot of the time from where we were positioned, and obviously a lot of people that were at Wembley will know, we didn't have the best view of a screen. Come on, guys, let me sort that out.
So that's an open goal.
You were watching the ring, and as a result, you can see they're going for like maybe a facial expression, but you're not able to see how they projected it. So I look forward to the TV version of this in the building. Great stuff.
It's hard for them to, well, they managed to do it, but yeah, that tightrope of, like you said, violence and theatricality, especially with factoring in the finish effectively is Toni Storm can't bring us.
Who's that? Who's Toni Storm?
Toni Storm.
I know who Toni Storm is.
Can't bring herself to use the shoe in the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have to echo Hamflet's take on this entirely. We talked a lot in the build-up about how this was perfect and not so good throughout the entire build because the balance that they have to strike, it's like landing a dart from 50 feet away. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so hard to make this feel attritional, real, as if these incredibly exaggerated characters feel real things and hatred. Like, it's almost this contrast that is irreconcilable, and yet on the night they couldn't have, like, the physicality helped. This does not work if they don't beat the piss out of each other. And there was some terrifying angles on the suplexes.
Storm Zero on the steps.
Like the headbutts, like they killed each other. And, you know, another thing as well is in the build, I was always a bit like, well, there's a big blood heat angle. They are talking about being prepared to die, and there's no stip. And you're thinking, well, that's, you know, surely it's a deathmatch situation or a lot. Instead, be pro wrestlers and use the violence with your bodies in the context of a wrestling match. And my God, like, they just half killed each other. You can imagine there's like certain times that things just click. Home run gets used a lot. You can imagine, you know, when they put away the character's attire, that they've met up and thought, oh, thank you. That's everything we could have possibly imagined this match was. And I still think there's some way to go here. I think they've got a better stepped up match in them. And even if they don't, or that match doesn't happen, they can be enormously proud of this. This is the best thing the AEW women's division has ever done. And they completely nailed the landing.
That's pressure, isn't it? You're right. That's a lot of pressure. That division, it's not their fault that they're shouldering so much pressure.
Yeah,
that division has just offered you the best thing you've ever seen. And it's their job then to pay that off.
They're going to have to stick that landing. And they did. They must be so delighted with how it went.
Let's talk FTW Championship. Unfortunately,
we have to do that.
Well, unfortunately, I missed the Fozzy entrance for Chris Jericho.
I couldn't go to the toilet because the queues.
I was going to say, judging by people in the concourse, I wasn't the only one who thought, well, now's the time. But it was Chris Jericho versus Hook for the FTW title. Obviously, Hook's last chance at it. Chris Jericho flanked by Big Bill and Brian Keith. Big Bill's so over. The general consensus from fans, especially on what went down, was get him the hell away from Chris Jericho as fast as possible. Really like Brian Keith.
But he's going to now be able to take credit for this, which he will.
Story of this match was a really tall guy that's really over and a really short guy that's really over. That's what made this match great.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brian Keith as well. He came along to Sweet Chin Disco afterwards. Lovely to meet him. Chris Jericho pulled out his balls. Sorry, Chris Jericho pulled out his cricket balls. You speculated as he did it what the thing was going to be. We were pleasantly surprised by cricket balls.
Yes.
Although I was slightly terrified with the way they were throwing it. I was like, that's probably going to hit someone on the front row just because he was batting it away. Obviously.
Are they working cricket balls or what?
Yeah.
If they were true corkers, which surely not.
Can't think, can they?
Like, I once threw, like, intending for a mate to catch it, like a corker, like a proper for the Yanks who don't, really know much about cricket. A corker is just like an incredibly hard ball, like a really hard ball. I once threw it at a mate, fully expecting him to catch it from a short distance, gentle throw, missed it, and it burst his lip.
Jeez. That's not funny, but it's, I can picture this.
They got goddamn superhuman strength, maybe. No. Yeah, they're really painful. Surely they were working balls.
For our American viewers and listeners, by the way, if you do want to watch them.
There are more than 2 countries.
If you want to see some cricket, you can actually just grab the clicker and go one up from dogs jumping off diving boards in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Cricket's on the next sports channel.
I mean, why would you want to? Why would you want to change the channel on that?
That's the greatest sport known to man.
And of course, 2/3 have got working balls here, so that works as well. Finally, let's get around to talking about the numbers game catching up to
Apologies for my feminist penis.
Brian Keith, Big Bill, numbers game. Big Bill, it took a kendo stick shot, though, and fell through a table. Yeah. And that...
Unbelievable bump.
Great bump. And finally, after watching his son getting the crap picked out of him, Taz was like, I've had enough of this, actually. He gets involved. Taz mission to Brian Keith. Red rum to Chris Jericho. Hook regains the FTW title.
Taz standing up and doing that was amazing. Like, I very, very briefly in a Chris Jericho match saw the face of God because Taz slapped on the Taz mission and I was what felt like 100 foot away and it was still incredible. Me and Sid were both lamenting the fact that after all the money that was spent on music on the show, couldn't we just add Kiss for Hook at the end?
We did say that, but then can you imagine, I don't think Hook is, outside of watching his dad, heard or liked a Kiss record in his entire life. It wouldn't fit the character, I don't think.
They teased Taz.
But War Machine, oh my God.
Yeah.
What a theme.
They teased Taz as part of Hook's entrance now.
Yeah, he was away.
The
a lot of people missed it, but they did the beep, beep. So I did want to riff. After that. No offense to Action Bronson, because that theme is great. But
and there was a bit of whispers online, like after something was said at the scrum, and then maybe Taz followed it with a tweet. This could be it for the FTW title, and maybe that's for the best.
Maybe for the best. This match wasn't the best. This match was one of the low points of an otherwise incredible show. It wasn't just the cues for the toilet and for the beers and the attendees. Like, the atmosphere was like, Jericho's here. And it's just like, you can talk around this heat. You can be meta with it. You can be corny with it. You can try and sort of twist it. The actual audible fact of the matter was in that stadium, no one gave a toss about this. No one cared about it. It felt very much like it had to happen to appease Chris Jericho's ego. It felt like, if you look at Cardiff, yes, I was enormously happy for Big Bill, but the subplot, which shouldn't be the subplot, it's the most important thing, is that how does that reflect on Hook? How does that reflect on Hook? This was meant to be, and bear in mind, the amount of TV and pay-per-view time that has been sunk into Chris Jericho getting Hook over as his latest thing. If you look at the atmosphere here, how Big Bill's more over than Hook as a baby face, and how the biggest pop of this match, basically Chris Jericho spent 5 months getting Taz over, and Taz was already over. I think Hook is, how does this keep happening? In a worse position, really, than he was before this Jericho program. A lot of people loved that Hook Joe match. This was not Hook Joe.
No.
They went 17 minutes at the Dynasty, or when was it? Or Revolution. They went
Hook and Jericho.
Yeah.
Dynasty.
17 minutes. Please retire, chance. And I thought, what's a good idea? Bring this one back at Wembley. We know why it happened. It has to happen to appease Jericho. Like, he was never not going to appear at Wembley.
Even in just a sort of like for like sense, the only ascension in the last 12 months of Hook's career is winning the FTW title on the main card instead of the pre-show. There is like no actual growth.
No narrative,
no narrative growth, no sense of him moving up the mid-card. He's exactly where he was when he beat Jack Perry 12 months ago. So it's like,
I mean, they got a huge pop at the end, and I went wild for it, as a lot of people did. This is ultimately a huge, dispiriting waste of time.
You and I turned to each other at one point and said, really different work in Wembley when you haven't got Will Ospreay to carry you. Great match, isn't it? Well, you made a really interesting, because this was the shortest match on the card. This was even shorter than Darby and Jack Perry, which got his time cut, as we found out today. 10 minutes, 15 seconds, according to Wikipedia. But you made a really good point when we were talking about it afterwards, that you could have boiled it down to like 2 minutes.
The agent of this match actually lent itself.
I've completely forgot the 6 minutes in between.
Yeah. To like a rapid fire squash. Jericho,
Cricket balls, Taz.
Yeah. Taz, you remember choking out Kurt Angle at One Night Stand 2? Same sort of thing. Like you didn't need a match, you needed a thing that required the space to apply the Taz mission and end it. And you really could have got there, and it could have just been loud. Like Fozzy plays for heat because he's playing the Learning Tree song, something you're not supposed to enjoy. He's in the ring, Hook's entrance music hits.
What's the sting for that?
I'm a Learning Tree.
Correct. Immediate chaos. Everyone's still hot from that Taz mission and out of there. Basically, I'm going to use another Chris Jericho example. That's something else that me and Sid are in attendance for. The Sabu element of the Jericho-Adam Cole match, when everybody's just so hot that it's going crazy, and then Sabu leaves and it's like, I've got 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
A bit of, I'll give credit to AEW for one thing that they've been disciplined with. The pop for Taz and Hook hugging was huge.
Yeah.
They've been really disciplined about them two not really interacting much like that. Like earnest love in the Taz household doesn't feel like it comes easy, and this was a reflection of that, so that was nice.
Next, we had the AEW.
What are you saying about Mr. Father?
Oh, he's a wonderful father. He illustrates dude, you watch the match, dude. What is Affection Jones?
Let's talk the World Tag Team Championships 3-way. The Young Bucks, dressed as the Beatles.
What?
They put a photo in their socials, just in case you were unaware.
We should have set that up, should we? Sage, I didn't get that. You need to explain that to me.
Versus FTR versus the Acclaimed. Your thoughts on this match?
Can I talk first?
Please.
Yeah.
It was good.
Please.
I get first at AEW. He gets first
He's
at
right,
WWE.
actually.
Yeah.
Especially around this match, I was hoping he'd switch it.
And the end of the day, I'm going to say the exact same thing he did. So I'm going to say it first this time. This was a cute, good match. That was it. There was it felt didn't feel like, I'm always reticent to say certain words because they've been poisoned, right? But there were some cute spots in this match, and there was a cute element of the subverted shatter machines.
Yeah.
They were pretty cool.
It was a BTE trigger, I think, with Max Caster.
Yeah, so that was kind of the theme. It's like, this guy's doing tag team spots with that guy. And, so those moments felt a little bit, it's just good, cute, contrived, hollow. It didn't feel like this big war, didn't feel like this huge title match. And, I feel the need. I feel like I have to say, not like this. Please don't conflate me with bad faith podcasters. The characters aren't hot, and I'm talking about Hamlet, by the way, not Eric Bischoff. The characters aren't hot. Story isn't there, and the net result of that is you get people, and I was in this stadium, and maybe Jericho didn't help, but even if this opened the main card proper, I don't think you would have got that hands rubbing, that bell pop of, I can't wait for this.
They should have opened. You could put a ladder match in this
You
spot
said
and
that
they
as
could have
much,
followed
didn't you?
Jericho.
Yeah, I felt like
there.
before the show they should have opened. I knew it was going to get the reaction it did, and the reaction it got was, oh, that's a cool spot. Then a little bit of downtime and silence because you're not looking for the struggle. You're not really enormously invested in the result and how it might alter the complexion of the division going forward because you don't care about the characters, or certainly I don't. And that felt like it was echoed across Wembley Stadium. Again, cute moments, well worked. That's it. This tag division needed what it got in the post match because I had fun with this. It was the of wrestling matches. This I thought it was very good at points, but like cute, very again just contrived and felt a little bit like really like thought out, but not in a good way. Didn't feel like as much of a sense of struggle. I felt like they got really cute with it, even as far as like when the Bucks were out the ring, that there's this really cool, unique spot where FTR went nose to nose with their opponents mid-match. Do you know what I mean? It felt like a, you know, when a legacy band, does like their 8th Christmas hits CD in like 20 years. Yeah. It's like, oh, right, well, you need something for your dad. Felt like that.
Yeah, like, I would say...
Like a greatest hits.
Not that this is like the only example, because this happens probably too much in wrestling at this point, but it was a reminder, like, the people were critical of the booking, and rightfully so, en route to this match. You know, it was obvious where it was going. It was almost frustrating that they were wasting so much TV time on matches that...
48 minutes to build a 3-way match that everyone knew was going to happen before the 48 minutes.
Oh, because of the
18 minutes, Young Bucks versus the Acclaimed. 30 minutes draw, Jesus Christ, between FTR and the Acclaimed. 48 minutes to arrive at a narrative inevitability.
And what they've done there is what you get in wrestling a lot now.
Mental.
Which is just this whole, oh, well, you know, but it'll be a great match on the night, which is often a curse on a match. This wasn't exactly a curse on it, but if you've seen 48 minutes, not just 48 minutes of like in-ring promo time, 48 minutes of the actual action for a match you're not that fussed about. So it's almost like they're giving you so much of it away anyway, so they've got to do other things to impress you. And it's like, had there been loads more times where, like, so the example I would use is a good way of doing this type of match was, I think I said this to you at the time, Sidge, in the building, the Revival, DIY and AOP. Two teams have had this, like, end of the world war, and now AOP are so big and dangerous, they have no choice, and they know each other's moves inside and out because they've taken them many times. There is a narratively rich way to do that type of stuff, not just... Oh, anyway, should you fancy giving this a go with me?
Yeah.
And that was, it felt like a bit more tacked onto it. What I will say just a little bit on because I've nothing else to add about the match, on the Beatles thing, was it a nice bit of, other than the obvious Liverpool versus London neg, to have a bit of a dig at the live crowd in it, like as opposed to last year when they were Queen, like an act associated with Wembley, this time it was like, no, with the Beatles, we don't need London, we've got another city. Was it a bit of foreshadowing for what was to come as well, which is it's quite Young Bucksy to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the closest I bit on an ear for was the famous on the belt followed by the mic drop. The Young Bucks make the save. In the end, they win with the BTE.
Good
trigger.
saves. Yeah. Good spots.
But more
where's the story?
More importantly than all that,
Oh my God.
the grizzled young veterans are here, and they did genuinely. I know I'm biased because I love them, but like they did genuinely feel like immediately a breath of fresh air for this division.
This division needs one. Not to go, I've got two brains at the minute. I've got head. Head.
Been a long week.
Head and heart. My heart is with AEW right now. Kind of fallen back in love with it. My head is going to say this. It's not my heart. It's not my real thoughts. It's my cynical thoughts. Is that, you know, Tony Khan, you know, just enjoy it, but by all means enjoy by being disciplined. We've already seen grizzled young veterans just lose a match on Collision.
Yeah. That was a really poor choice, that was.
Did that match need, you know what I mean? Did that match need to happen? Because you could have had like this big sort of, because you've instantly thought, right, well, that's going to be a nice boon to the division, but they're not going to reshape it in their image sort of thing, you know? So maybe I didn't need to see that. And if you just got this, you would have thought, ooh, potential new champions, you know?
We'll wait and
Just
see.
be a bit more disciplined, Tony.
No prizes for guessing what I'm going to pitch on the Dynamite preview later on this week. Let's continue, though, to... This button's going to break. The Casino Gauntlet.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Like the match itself, I didn't want that button pressing to end.
No.
Ever.
I don't think it's wrong for us to say we thought this will be a fun match, relatively predictable. I think we all probably would have said Hangman Page wins it.
What the card needed for some entrances and some pops and some range and all of that.
And they've been good casino.
Great.
Great casino gauntlets in the past.
Actually, Ernest, great.
But we just thought this will be fun.
I thought this was going to be magic. But I didn't expect
not
this kind of magic. It's a kind of magic.
Funny, there was a wrestling magician. Which maybe don't need to do any of that anymore, I don't know. He could just be back, couldn't he? Somebody pulled a rabbit out of their hat.
First entrant, Mr. Bean looking ass.
Oh my God.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very You are. No, they should be thanking us.
Yeah. And then you knew immediately that was a great start to it all. And then the moment they went, and then Kazuchika Okada, number 2.
Oh my God.
Right, okay, we're not going to
Jump
go...
in.
Yeah,
We're
okay,
not really going to even do that many spots, but we'll just, there's a spot I know you're going to want to mention.
That's right.
But it's mainly just because you're and 5, another one.
We're going to do what happened to the Roddy Strong bit and just get through some bits really quickly.
There was... this goddamn match was unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. This... And MJF Ospreay was incredible, right? But this in the main event was like, this is the absolute peak of AEW. This match, and I mean this in the best possible way, because I felt like my soul had been set alight, was an absolute extravagance of All Elite Wrestling in terms of how they build the pops, in terms of what only this promotion can do, in terms of how they've just got these names interacting with each other. This was what I talk about when I talk about AEW. This was, and I was trying to like do a dumb analogy for it, right? This was a 3-plate Christmas dinner of a match where you are, situate yourself here. It's Christmas Day, not you. It's Christmas Day. You're having an absolutely wonderful time, a wonderful Christmas time, in fact. And
That was Oasis, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. And they're back together as well. You're having a wonderful Christmas time, one of the best days of your life. You know, I don't know about you, but I just think Christmas is underrated.
That's good.
An absolutely wonderful Christmas time, and you just want excess, more. You don't want it all the time. You don't want every wrestler on every show all of the time. That's why, AEW is Chris is a young veteran, shouldn't have been on Collision that time in retrospect. You just want more. Am I full? Not even close. Not even f***ing close. That's how not full I am. I want more. To the point, right? And this is, I'm sorry, I've just stolen Hamlet's take. To the point where it's like, but I felt it as well. You just don't want it to end. To an extent, right, that when Ricochet comes out, and I didn't know any better at the time, obviously, when Ricochet comes out, you kind of like, oh no, that means that he might win this, and I don't want it to end. The sequencing of entrance could not have been any better before you even consider the entrance themselves. Like, Orange Cassidy with that entrance, great. All right, God, who's next? All right, Okada.
Oh my God.
The pop he got in that stadium was megastar, living legend. You're watching one of the best of all time, and you can't believe he's actually here.
Yep.
It was an eruption.
It's justifying why they're doing the nonsense stuff with him now, honestly, because you're still getting that with him.
Yeah, you're still getting that.
One of these days, he's going to become the Rainmaker proper. And it's like, oh, we had all that stuff already.
When the main event picture sort of suits it.
Yes. This is absolutely the right thing they're doing with Okada.
And then you get that moment where you get the best of Okada throughout this match because he does the hug on Cassidy. And his face just goes like that, and then he kicks his ass. And then you get like a drop kick later. I can't remember. I can't wait to watch this back. I was too tired last night. I only watched the main event again last night. And preemptive.
Oh my God.
And then it's like, I'm thinking, right, stupid me. AEW's not going to be the most goated thing of all time here. You're not going to get the feeling injected in. It's like almost a feeling overdose, this goddamn match. So you think, right, okay, Okada, right, okay. If you follow the rules of the stupid rubbish Royal Rumble.
Alliteration. The Rubbish Royal Rumble.
The Rubbish Royal. It's one time it's allowed.
That was the original name for the Saudi version.
You follow the rules of the Royal Rumble. Boring. Overrated. I'm sorry. I've just never liked that match quite as much as anybody else. And now I've been vindicated. You think, right, number 3, all right, what we'll do is you've had Okada, so you'll get, no disrespect intended, some of the best wrestlers of their generation, but, like Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Get some of the best wrestlers of the independent boom, some of the, most preeminent artists of the century.
Zach was a nice example.
That's
a good example.
Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, and then you can get maybe Hangman and maybe like a surprise. No, you get the most possibly knowing what happened to him and how it hasn't happened yet, and you thought, that means it's not going to happen. Yeah, Nigel McGuinness.
Oh my God.
This goddamn pop was unlike a lot of things I've ever heard. I could scarcely believe that he was back.
Cartoonish. Proper feeling of everybody, like, it's actually happening.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And, like, I think everyone, I don't want to peek. Everyone in that stadium. Jesus Christ, you shitting me? Like, everyone had that reaction. You shitting me?
We were waiting weeks for something to really justify that.
And then just he looks incredible. The shape he's in, the way he was moving. The perfect match with which to bring him back as well, because he could just take breathers. If you're going to be a boring bastard, he could probably say, a lot of selling on the floor. I don't care. Sell for 3 more hours so more wrestlers can come out. And I can't remember the order of entrance, but then like Kyle O'Reilly comes in and it's
Kyle O'Reilly
awesome.
next, ZSJ after that.
ZSJ, it's like, of course. And you get this match within a match within a match within a match within a match. A Russian doll technical classic that's more goated than the Royal Rumble ever was.
The bit when it's theatrical dirt in pro wrestling.
Did he get Mark Briscoe?
When Zack Sabre Jr. and Nigel McGuinness are turning around into one there.
Yeah.
The shoulder, yeah.
What is going on? Somebody tweeted this, and as usual, should have wrote it down because it's such a great take as well. Like, the mere fact, because you don't think about it at the time, you're just making that noise for Nigel McGuinness. The fact that means, in kayfabe, Nigel McGuinness, as much as he hates this about himself, tacitly believed that Bryan would win that main event. It's such a great thing.
Yes.
How great is that? I'm going to have to win this because he's going to win the belt again. Yet again. Bryan is going to screw me out of my in life. And he's like, I can't sanction that. I'm going to have to get my tights on in this frigging match.
The highest possible praise, and trust me, I wouldn't use this phrase that I'm just about to coin lightly. This was the anti-Def Rebel match. Because every single time you saw 5, 4, it's like, you're going to get either a living work rate demigod or this incredible pro wrestling legend that you're going to get. You know what? I'm going to say everything I need to say about this match before he can talk about what he wants to talk about with this match. I'll tell you something as well. This is like the ultimate way of establishing this Hangman Page character as working is this totally vengeful, like this guy who just will not be stopped. Like a Terminator Hangman Page character of, Hangman's out, everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
Everybody else, like, that's his match to win now. Like, he's going to kill you all. And he did. Like, the power bombs on the apron and stuff were just absolutely unbelievable. Ricochet comes out and he looks like Ricochet again. And
yeah, remember when Rey Mysterio first came back with the stem cells? She was like, it's 1996 or something. And Ricochet was like, tonight, to make a point, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour doing everything.
Almost too, like he wobbled on the rope slightly a little bit. He was so desperate to impress, which is what you want when someone comes to AEW. Then something else happened that Hamlet's going to cover off. And then the Christian Cage thing. I understand. I was delighted at being cruelly swerved. That's what wrestling is. It's got Luchasaurus and not Killswitch on the Tron. He's finally getting his comeuppance. And to be honest, other than Nick Wayne's mom, who we know,
He's got it going on.
wearing the belt, I've felt like they might have taken the piss with this Killswitch stuff a little bit. I'm not even that into, I can't wait for Luchasaurus to come back until Luchasaurus seemingly comes back.
Especially because he's just been bollocked at the end of that trios match.
He stormed off, didn't he? Yeah.
And it's on the Tron, you're thinking, that's it. Christian Cage, it's time to pay the piper. And then he doesn't. He helps Christian Cage one. I thought it was such a great bit of black comedy.
He's still getting blamed on Dynamite as well, 100%. He lost us those trios.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I've got us a bloody world title shot. Don't worry.
I just don't want to downplay everyone else who came in, like Mark Briscoe,
Yep.
was like got the pop that he's 50,000 plus pop for Mark Briscoe. It was wonderful to see. This was just joy, happy, joy, anti-Def Rebel, super double goated, better than the Royal Rumble. AEW, the feeling injected to the point where I feel like I might OD here, boys. Just clutching at this guy's arm. Who's next? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Luma! Like, I just got, this is a drug, a treble go, a triple played Christmas dinner, anti-Def Rebel, better than the Royal Rumble. I can't believe these wrestlers are here interacting with one another. Only in AEW. 5-star buzz match.
Yeah.
And then somebody else entered as well. I don't know who it was.
Do you want me to I'll just recap. So we got to ZSJ,
Yeah.
then Roderick Strong, then Mark Briscoe, because I feel like Roderick Strong came out in one backbreaker. Enough of that. Get Mark Briscoe out there. Roderick Strong backbreaking everyone, obviously. Then we got Hangman Page, like you say, just killing people.
Killing people.
And then 50,000 people, Wembley Stadium, and basically it's home away from home at this point. My voice hasn't got the oh, it turns out it does, because it always does. And I'm like, well, there we go. And then he comes out and as was captured on camera, I've tried to retweet. I've thanked the people that took the pictures.
As it's been retweeted by Karen Jarrett.
Karen Jarrett, thank you for the retweet. Multiple angles of me popping. And
Not being funny, Michael Hamflett did a better job of projecting himself in the stadium than Britt Baker.
So just there he is on the stage, the whole music, the whole deal comes out, absolutely unbelievable. Then Hangman Page, that dickhead, that piece of garbage, tries to stop Jeff Jarrett doing the strut, so he knocks him back into the corner, does a strut. I'm strutting on the spot at this point.
We were doing the strut in the stands, weren't we? Yeah.
Hangman Page gets his revenge by powerbombing Jeff Jarrett onto the pile of people on the floor. Are you f***ing kidding me? Right, and I'm like, well, you know what? This is amazing. Jarrett has had the pop. The entrances are imagine saying entrances are f***ing goated. But he's had the entrance. That was awesome. The stadium's had a nice moment because Cardiff obviously welcomed him, and he's over at the TNA legacy, the TNA tour. It left an imprint. Mm-hmm. Jeff Jarrett's 30, 40 years of being a god anyway. So you thought, that's
a god.
You know what? I've had mine. It's probably hangers to win. There's obviously maybe a couple more surprises left. I don't mind now. I've had a great night. You got your f***ing hands on Karen Jarrett. And that, by the way,
so confusing as well, because that literally goes out with Ricochet coming out, and you're like, because all the other stuff that Hangman Page has done is bad, but you're always but he's just blind with rage. That was
he's a heel now.
Narratively, that's perfect, isn't it? That is ultimate head loss. You have morphed into, and you haven't walked into Swerve's house yet, but that is basically narratively everything that you are supposed to be raging against, and we're supposed to think he's just having one very long bad day, and it's you can't dead-eye a woman, Hanger, and then it's no, you can't, because the f***ing acoustic equalizer's wrapped around your goddamn head. And I was like, hang on, it's Jeff Jarrett just removed Hangman Page in this match that somebody else is going to win. What? So you've got one more singles match through there that he's going to kill him. I'm going to go to the funeral, but Jeff's got to die for this. Sorry. Unbelievable scenes. And to extend Cedric's point about just how this is what we talk about when we talk about AEW. You were the first person to fantasy book a spot that then materialised on X last night when poor old Evil Uno's backstage and he's like, hang on, wasn't that supposed to be my number? So Christian Cage just took his number. He's like, oh, well, it's fine. The count, I'll come next. 1, 2, 3, ding. What the that's proper pick your favourite AEW year stuff.
Yeah.
My favourite year of AEW was August 2024.
I said it in the office this morning. This is 4 3/4. I'm deducting a quarter because it's still not going on. This was, and to Sidge's point about Royal Rumbles, there aren't many in the last 10 to 15 years as good as this. McGuinness at 3 is if you want to be generous, you could say AJ Styles at 3 because you just wouldn't have seen something coming that early and so big and spectacular, and it requires somebody just seemingly not being, it being an impossibility, what you could see. Even to the point where people were just having fun with it on Twitter. Oh, Mariah May has brought Nigel McGuinness out of retirement with a kiss. This was perfect. This was absolutely perfect.
It was AEW, baby.
Yeah.
Then we got the AEW United States Championship, I suppose, soon to be the International Championship. MJF versus Will Ospreay. Hell of a job to follow that match, by the way. And Will Ospreay had his loser sort of gaming entrance.
People loved it. People loved it, Wilborn.
There's a big crossover between wrestling and gaming.
And MJF came out. Well, do you want to talk about MJF's gear?
Yes, please. So where do we even start? Uncle Sam.
You start with my prediction, correct?
Apollo Creed, with the gown and the cap and everything like that. The fact that we wanted it and we got it. The biggest ever version of his 50 MJF's Stars and Stripes flag. And then the gown comes up and he's wearing Lex Luger's trunks.
Like I always said.
Yeah.
Like I always said.
But they regret those streamers though, eh?
Second year in a row. It was the Young Bucks last year. It's I know Gorilla Monsoon used to say it, but things shouldn't literally be hanging from the rafters. It really gets in the way. I liked it in this match.
I loved it throughout. Got the American Dragon
I suppose, yeah, that's fair.
The UK show, because it's the same colours.
It's also funny sometimes watching a cameraman.
The colours never run. We know
There'd
that.
be a little bit that just slowly, it wouldn't all just come down. It just sort of slowly. And there's one bit where I saw where you could see the cameraman was just shooting it, and then he was like, "Am I off? Am I off? Fucking get off! Get down!" And you see people like scrabbling around on the floor trying to scrape it all up. But yeah,
as it should have been part of. By the way, I know I go on about aesthetics probably too much, but that was key to the early part of the presentation of this match because this existed to somewhat differentiate itself from the Dynamite match in one half before becoming like the accelerated version of it in the second half. So this was like expert use of aesthetics from Ospreay getting to obviously live a kind of Assassin's Creed dream and MJF getting to kind of really pay off this version of this character in the way that he used to. A lot of his pay-per-view matches used to be about like a singular build and a character trait before he moves on to the next one. And it's been a while since we've had one of these. And it's quite nice to see it followed through and probably now, like, it'd be very him to be like, stupid country anyway, and gets his normal Burberry scarf back and all that kind of thing. This was like the grand maybe send-off of the ultra-patriot MJF thing.
kangaroo kick early on, tombstone on the outside to Will Ospreay.
That was really well done. It felt like a proper struggle. It felt like he'd actually hit the move and then he went, no, he hasn't. Didn't really feel contrived at all. I thought this match was excellent.
There was a bit I wrote down early on in the match, according to the way these notes are going, where I just heard someone, not us, I don't think, but someone relatively close to us just shout, "I love wrestling!" As an Oscar, MJF got his foot on the rope, brainbuster to Ospreay, Stormbreaker got 2. I can't remember if this was before or after MJF just moved out of the way when Ospreay went for something, but MJF hit a Canadian Destroyer on the apron.
Oh my God.
Ospreay hit a hidden blade into a cameraman who had some very snazzy pants on. There's a belt shot in there. Ospreay kicks out, ref bump, Tiger Driver, or an attempt at a Tiger Driver, low blow from MJF, who puts on the beautiful diamond ring until he stopped. And I've seen the fan footage now of your man running down and getting people excited and jumping up on the apron because he stopped by a returning Daniel Garcia. And MJF turns around into a hidden blade. And finally, Will Ospreay hits the Tiger Driver, wins, and regains what I did also like that. Is it Bryce? Stepping on MJF. I didn't see him. To swap the US title for the International Championship, who Will Ospreay has now regained.
Can I just say, before I give my thoughts on this match, spoiler, I thought it was fabulous, excellent. I've just looked over to Wilborn there and noticed the notes on his phone, which reminded me that this man has done a live show that went on for about an hour and a half, an extended meet and greet. He's then watched all of All In, took notes on it. When All In finished, me and Hamlet were like, let's have some beers, and we're pretty much done until the podcast. Wilborn's then done a 25-minute video filmed outside where he has to be on again, interacting with fans, and then he's compared a live nightclub. He's done like 4 work days in about 24 hours. He's done an incredible job and he deserves putting over for it. I'm thinking, after the live show, I was like, that's a day's work. And then we've got to the All In. I was like, I'm exhausted after this. He's done twice as much as most people do in a day.
So when you
well done to Wilborn.
Like all along, when you said like the thing is what Tony Khan doesn't understand is that
I thought he's done the video and then switch in disco.
Nobody can relate to Tony Khan's work day. Turns out the only one that could was here all along.
Here all along. Here all along.
Boys.
What a shift he's put in. I thought this match was incredible. Like on this, if this was the main event and Danielson and Swerve for whatever reason just wasn't happening, this would have been a worthy main event. Yeah. The actual action was as incredible as you'd expect because they exhibited awesome physical chemistry in that somewhat divisive hour-long draw. This is more concise. I just enjoyed it a lot more. It just felt like the end of the story when you expected that one was just beginning. Like some of the spots were outrageous, but it was all about building to... And you know what? This sort of did justify a lot of the... I think one of the problems, in addition to the length, was the first match is that I maybe felt a little bit cynical in that you knew they were going for a rating. It felt sort of deeper into the match. Well, MJF's winning this one, then Ospreay's going to win at Wembley. It felt more strategic than this really sort of heartfelt, really cool, like, thoroughly gripping, organic story where it's like, right, we're going to do this and I'll do the American thing. It all felt right. All of this is for All In. It didn't feel like this organic story that it just felt like they had a destination in mind and they have to do these, or they feel like they have to do these beats to get there. And how can MJF look good on the way before he drops it? It's a little bit cynical, but like really well performed. Mm-hmm. All of it was justified by this match because at the end of the day, they had this absolute hybrid sort of, if you can even call it state of the art anymore, athletic shootout, ridiculous move, ridiculous stamina, ridiculous length, bombast, move, ridiculous spot. All of which, as it turns out, was, well, he kind of has to use the Tiger Driver. It's not just a moral thing. It's these guys are at the absolute top of their game. These total young sturge. A little bit delirious, man. I only got 4 hours sleep. Young sturge in a shootout. It's like, well, after all of this excess, like these Canadian destroyers on the apron, tombstones on the outside, kind of justified that sort of modern bombast and excess. Cause it's like there's only one move that can win this with these two. They've wrestled 2 matches over 1.5 hours. Mm-hmm. There's only one move that's going to really end it, and that is the Tiger Driver. MJF, I don't think he could have taken it any more perfectly. No. It was like, there's 2 things you don't want to do with the Tiger Driver. One, I love you so much and please come back. You don't really want to do what Kenny Omega did. I mean, you do if you're based and sick, but you don't really want to do that. It's not particularly well advised. And you don't want to do an ostensible flat back. You need to hit
the Ultimate Warrior Rick Rude.
Yeah.
Pile driver.
You don't want it to look like a flat back. Yeah. You don't want to just get dumped on your head. You want to do what MJF did. Like that MJF bump was absolutely out of this world incredible in terms of that initial, oh God, he's probably going to be okay. That's good. And I tell you what as well, so not only did this match and the finish justify pretty much most of the pedantic complaints I had about the build, but this is a bit of bad news, good news situation. The bad news is that I'd kind of forgotten that Daniel Garcia had existed, realistically. So I was genuinely shocked when I'd forgotten about him. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, even if dramatically in the moment, for me personally, it was really effective. The other bit of good news is that crowd who would like the various moments of the Danielson match, the McGuinness return, the Okada pop, like that crowd was probably as loud as it was all night in terms of those 3 or 4 moments is when they were like, oh, it's going to happen. The Tiger Driver is going to happen. They went absolutely ballistic, begging Ospreay to do it. And Ospreay, what a megastar he is in England. A megastar in England.
And MJF, you said afterwards, sold it perfectly because he was doing all the big celebrations, quite rightly. Fans
he looked like he was dead.
And he hadn't moved for about 5 minutes.
It's just like, I don't know, like Cedric's covered everything really well in the match there, so like nothing really else to add about. Ultimately, I don't know if we disagree on this. Like I think the ends justify the means with the Tiger Driver, but I do understand why people thought the means were a bit too heavy-handed and
it does a hidden blade as a move.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't
really
work.
Yeah. But the pop they were chasing, they got. But what they showed here was that they could have got it. They could have got it anyway. Like, had they just maybe had a bit more faith in themselves or the viewers, perhaps. But like,
I will say that 30 seconds of, and I thought, you know what else was incredible about the detail? It wasn't just, well, he's going to do it. It's, he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it. I really want him to do it. But even if he does it, Bryce is still out.
Yeah.
There was like layer of noise upon noise, like really, really clever stuff this between MJF and Ospreay. Ultimately, there was just that clamour, that desire in the audience. Maybe it did justify it all.
I don't know if this is recency bias, but I think as Mr. Bean looking asses, we can have this conversation. And I think it was something...
Would I be drained Bamager if AEW was in the UK all the time? And I was just on that clock. Just get pissed watching all these shows at a reasonable time.
Hundreds of emojis. Well, no, like on Ospreay, who, by the way, right, I'm going to put these guys over because I think these were the first to say. I think it was the Grapple Boys, some more Mr. Bean looking asses, who first made the point that it was maybe time to start having a conversation about where Ospreay ranks against Davey Boy Smith as like the biggest like headline attraction wrestler we've ever had, and it's going to be a contentious one. Right?
Davey Boy Mania was absolutely enormous.
We lived through that as kids, and you've got
people forget.
Yeah, you've got Wembley as your kind of exhibit A. You've got, to an extent, One Night Only as your exhibit B, but then the rest of his career and that, like kind of a Hulk Hogan-like figure here in the UK.
People, a lot of times, think, oh, he's the British wrestler, and it was Wembley, and WWF was hot because of the Sky Boom. Yeah. I think people underestimate Davey Boy.
I agree.
In and of himself, how huge he was.
I do agree with that. And it was a bit of a perfect storm in one respect because he happened to be there and over and massive and everything kind of needed. But I totally agree with that. However, and funnily enough, while we're talking about Ospreay, he rocked up at their live show and was talking about how like he felt he'd grown as a performer, and they'd seen him do the indie stuff and how he's come up. We've seen him transform and become this. Last year was the big awakening for me at Wembley of like, even I didn't think that the show needed him as much as a lot of people suggested, and I was bang wrong.
Everybody in that stadium has seen him at a different venue, it felt like.
Yeah.
And it felt like they respect him for putting in the graft he's put in. The English circuit is unbelievable. And this is especially when he didn't have to go back. When he was in New Japan, he could have just went, let's do that.
Yeah, this will do. This is me forever. So I think we're in a position where this was the year we were fan casting him into winning the world title, and yet this has happened and it's been just as big for him. They now get an entire extra year to make it so that if they want to wait, they can do, and everybody will sit on their hands till 2026 and wait for him to win the title there. So now, not that I necessarily think this has happened, they might just get there sooner, but Ospreay will almost definitely be in the main event of that show in 2026, and it'll be enormous. He is, I think, to maybe tie all this together, he's achieving British Bulldog-like cultural significance in a monoculture era. The Bulldog had the benefit of how there were so many there weren't as many things to watch and engage with, and pro wrestling was big for a bit, and he was the star of a boom era. Will Ospreay, as we always talk about, is competing with a million different screens, a million different hobbies, a million different ways to enjoy your time and your money and whatever. And yet, in these big occasions, like the UK comes out for him, and it is. And I think we've all said it in our own different ways. Like, I'm not the biggest Ospreay guy. I'm warming more and more to him as a TV star. I think his work is sometimes the thing I've got to be in the mood for, even if he's one of them very few wrestlers. I think objectively you can say sometimes that somebody is great, even if subjectively not for you, and Ospreay is one of them. But increasingly the reactions tell me that something bigger is happening with him, and historically he's starting to like leave a deeper footprint than maybe anybody ever. He will definitely main event Wembley in 2026, and I say that with no disappointment in my voice. That is his night to either win or retain the AEW World Championship, and it's 2024.
Yeah.
Like, I am absolutely certain of it, and like injuries aside and all that kind of thing. And I just think there is something very special that has happened with Will Ospreay in this country that maybe I was naive to assume wasn't kind of happening all those years he was making the towns. It's a magic feeling when he enters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
huge.
Massive.
Let's talk. I'll take this off. I just realised I was writing those lovely words, Sige. That's kind of ruined it a little bit.
It's the only person that'll take that hat after this match.
TBS Championship, Mercedes Mone versus Britt Baker. I don't know how you want to tackle this one.
Mercedes Mone won in one of, I would say, about 3 anticlimactic finishes here across the show. Honestly, it just peaked so high that I don't really care. But if you want to be really pedantic and scrutinise, even if the matches are, a bit quieter than you expect or whatever, you usually get the finishes right. There were 3 anticlimactic ones. I suppose if the coffin match got cut for time, Darby's usually better at orchestrating a finish. Something felt off then. This match, Britt Baker versus Mercedes Mone, had a really, really cool top row power slam, body slam spot. And then I guess even the Panama Sunrise looked pathetic.
Yep.
I'm sorry, it did.
Nice Eddie Guerrero spot as well.
A bit of vindication this for Dadley Boyz having correct takes all along, insightful takes all along that maybe people that didn't think about. Me and Hamlet have had this thing for ages, right, of a stadium match is hard to do.
Yep.
Really hard to do. And if you look at WWE's history of WrestleMania, certain matches, Jericho versus Punk stands out, but there's more where it's kind of hard to get a stadium rocking because screens help. WWE invariably puts a huge light under them, so sometimes you can't even see. It's hard to do a stadium match. Bryan Danielson, stadium magic. Bianca Belair, stadium magic. There are a few wrestlers who can just do it.
Brian got one spike, didn't he?
Got
the AJ one.
Yeah.
It can catch anybody out kind of sometimes. It just everything drops all at once. And there's a lot of people to suddenly not get into something, and that's inescapable, that vibe then, isn't it? You know,
it is hard to do. And I think we were a really good case study for this on Sunday night at All In, because here's I can remember the top rope body slam reversal, really cool. The Panama Sunrise, I think, was well inserted into the match when it needed it, but the execution was sloppy. Beyond that, right, I'm not being funny, we were pretty damn high up in that stadium. Like, we were at the very end of the last bit. We were high up. We were bloody high up, and we didn't have the benefit of a screen to look directly at. We could angle our heads, and we could see some stuff at the WWE angle. Right, the backstage. That's how we were looking at the most available screen. I have no clue what they were doing, and that's probably why this crowd was so flat. Obviously, if I'm watching on telly, I could probably follow the story and see what moves happened when and recall it better. From my vantage point, which you need to project to do if you want that, if you want all of the heat, like Danielson got in the main event. I have no idea what they were doing or what story they were telling, because they didn't work a match fit for a stadium, because I was a good case study because I was near the top. Hamflet, I've got no idea. I knew it sucked.
Yeah. I would typically
But I didn't know how it sucked. Do you know what I mean?
I would typically say, right, that this is wrestling happening in front of me. But was it wrestling, and was it definitely happening? Like, I
don't know what they were doing.
I still don't know until I watch it on ITV4 this week, right? Because there were definitely some moves, but they were not in... To Sidge's point, as far back as we were, everything sound-wise was registering pretty much when it happened. You maybe got like a split second, but never really noticed.
There wasn't much heat, though.
Well, there was zero heat to this match. So it was the worst-case scenario of like them trying to set something up or go through a sequence, and fans weren't particularly doing the oohs and the ahs for the right bits of the sequence. They would just happen sometimes to see something and then go for it, you know. This is something I've seen only through clips on Twitter, not through my own take on watching the match in full. There are some kind of criminal-looking moments as a layperson where it does indeed feel like you're watching, and we've seen this happen before, a wrestler basically walking another wrestler through certain spots. I don't want to say that as somebody that's never taken a bump in my life, but the evidence is there if you want to have a little nosy for yourself. Britt Baker... Let's just be honest about this. Britt Baker has had nights like this before, where ideas have maybe been overthought or
deeply uneven and overambitious wrestler.
And poorly executed. And what does poor execution do? It breaks the immersion. It takes you out of it. And I think, truthfully, there was never enough of an immersion built up to break. So what I am describing here is, I don't think this is like hyperbole, kind of a disaster. Because the one thing this had going for it was the one thing that should have ensured none of this happened, which was the booking that we praised, which the matchmaking that we praised, which was the biggest star they've ever created versus the biggest star they've ever signed. Like, absolutely the match.
Felt like an inter-promotional dream match in one company.
10 times out of 10, you book this match for this show on this night, and you kind of trust, not even trust the process, trust the aura and the star power and all the other stuff. We've paid tribute to the wonderful, the brilliant Psycho Sid on one of the news videos today, and it's everything you're going to read about a Sid. It's like, it was aura out the ass before you knew what it was, before you even knew what attracted you to it. Sid was showing you it, right? And you're not watching him necessarily for his worked punches, you're watching him for everything else. And these are two of those wrestlers that, and Sasha's got a list of Mercedes.
She's might be the best North American women's wrestler ever. She could be.
A list of great matches as long as all of our arms. And so, like, you definitely rely on. Britt Baker has had that star power enough times to not even really doubt this one. And yet, we got what we got. Was it chemistry? Was it all of the above? Was it everything we've said? Was it everything that I imagine? I haven't listened to any other coverage of this, yes, but I have absolutely no doubt everybody was saying the same thing. This was unequivocally the match that the bed on the show. Nobody will have praise for it, simply. They won't. And I don't think, like, let's even just, right, if we just take away our various and individual criticisms of the match, it achieved nothing because...
this is the worst night of Britt Baker's career.
Yeah. Like, you've got this massive star that's had a really bad night on a massive stage and then lost the title she's contesting, so thus narratively shouldn't be anywhere near getting another go. We'd already seen Jamie hate her, so that did away with the feeling that was what Camille was out there for, and then they threw her out in what, again, is supposed to be one of them, yeah, we're out here, but nobody cares about anything.
That was one bit from Britt Baker where she did a little wave.
Yeah.
That was Britt Baker.
She's really
You
good at
found
finding
her.
cameras
You
and-
found her for like a little moment in the match.
But otherwise, and because she's going and you've seen Jamie Hayter, like, they're just separated on screen now, then that's the end of that. There was just nothing to grab onto here. This is, at this point, it almost feels a lazy take because it's being said by everybody, but maybe if you keep saying it, maybe it'll happen. The Moneymaker's terrible. It is a terrible and anticlimactic way to end a match, even when it's a finisher. So the execution, the way of setting it up, which itself was clunky because of what appeared to be a bit of a, we've talked about it before, that extra second is sometimes a lifetime in a match, isn't it?
It's like Darby doing a choke slam.
Yeah.
Like, she can't do that move on anybody bigger than her, and pretty much everyone's bigger than her.
She's little. She has crafted, we used recently when we were talking about him on something else, we used the Reggie match as an example of Mercedes Moné wrestling herself with a guy that had gymnastic flair, and she has been able to sit down and think, what can I do with that gymnastic flair? And also, by the way, you can't strike me. And look what they did in a Thunderdome, and look what they did. That was a really great little bit of business, that was. She has the ability to craft. Britt, to Sidge's point, can still project and be Britt Baker in the right night, on the right night, whatever. This was all wrong for everybody involved. If you're Mercedes Moné, you probably want to get this win and run as far away from this entire thing as possible.
Let's talk about the coffin match instead. For the TNT Championship, Jack Perry versus Darby Allin. We mentioned on the news this morning this was cut for time, which sort of explains the
There's something off, and that just completely fills in the gap.
Exactly. First time for me seeing Darby Allin, and he's insane. Did a tope into the coffin very early on.
Even in a disappointing match, he didn't disappoint.
Exactly.
If that makes any sense.
There was real glass pulled out by Jack Perry.
The smirk when he did it was class as well.
Darby got his hands tied together, still did a coffin drop off the top rope to the outside.
Good job it wasn't I quit.
Perry throws him off the ramp, put him in a body bag, put him in the coffin, won. Post-match.
There was one hope spot, which, again, because it felt Rush didn't quite register, where we couldn't properly see it, but Darby gets his face out. What you're supposed to see is Pinhead screaming for his life, which on paper, that's going to be amazing, right? But it's like, and then Jack Perry goes, no, thank you, and just hits him, but it's like, oh, all right.
I also said it reminded me of when Ace Ventura comes out of the rhino's arse in Ace Ventura 2 when Nature Calls, so that's kind of ruined it for a few people sat around me. But after a quicker shave than Phil Chambers at the live show, the Young Bucks come out and they're going to set fire to the coffin. But who should return to save his son? But the Stinger.
Stinger!
He's the f***ing Stinger. What a pop.
What a moment.
As big as last year's, even though everyone knew it was coming, there was a pretty good chance you were going to get Seek and Destroy again. And it's like, oh, that's this thing now. Sorry, Tony, you need to pay Sting, you need to pay Sting's family, you need to pay Metallica. Every time that you come
And
to
Europe.
Wembley. And Europe, yeah, you need to pay all of that when you go to Wembley. Now, that's the Wembley tax. Because this was unbelievable.
It's one of those where I'm surprised. I'm actually a little bit pissed off by my lack of instincts here. Why didn't I immediately go, that was going to be better, but something happened?
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's been cooked, so it's really anticlimactic. So that explains things. As I said, like, in a match, this is ultimately a disappointing match because I had really big expectations that they did not deliver. Even in a disappointing match, Darby Allin does not disappoint. Some of the things he does to his body, like me, I was sat next to, so we're all together. Not Miller, he snagged great seats. But I was next to Nicholas and Phil, and then Cy, Hamflet, Wilborn were underneath. So I was directly next to Phil Chambers, and during everything Darby did, we just looked at each other and just pissed ourselves laughing. Like, what are you doing?
And Phil has taken bumps.
Yeah.
Unlike us. So yeah.
Phil has taken bumps before, and he was just, I was like, there was one bump where it's like, Darby, you've taken 2 unnecessary bumps in one bump. It's just, I don't know why you do this. I don't know how you do this, but I love you for doing it regardless. And I remember like just going, that's a finish, but it kind of makes sense. Disappointing, but what followed next meant I was always going to be in the mood of my life.
Sting's hair was absolutely good. I don't hear nothing other than that about that. It looked amazing.
Main event time. Title versus career. AEW World Championship on the line. Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson. I mean, do I need to run through what happened on this match? Go and watch it. I am not going to do justice to this match if I run you through Bryan getting dropped neck first on the apron, busted open because of Nana's interference.
Nana dancing in front of Birdie.
I was about to say the stomps in front of the family where you're like, God, that's awful. And then he's The yes kicks, the amazing fire up spot with his family, looking at his family. Swerve got put in a submission. I think it was a triangle choke, maybe. Regardless, Brian's got him in a submission. So Swerve just dropped him on his head. There's a swerve stomp. Danielson kicks out. He gets hit with everything. He won't stay down. And you think, okay. Yeah, wrestling fans, you go, okay, it's going to go this way, and then it's going to go this way. And, oh, here he goes. Finally, Danielson fires up. Busaiku knee.
Oh, my God.
First Strickland's just like, I was like, oh, cool, career's over then. Guess his career's finished because he's just shrugged that off.
Oh, that's one of the greatest spots I've ever seen.
Yeah.
There's a run-in, or at least an attempted run-in from Hangman Page, and you thought that was going to lead to the
They couldn't have
finish.
handled that any better.
I'm going to make the weirdest comparison, but I think you will all agree with this. That had the energy and the frenzy and the chaos of Enzo and Cass invading Ring of Honor at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, some people were so, like, shoot annoyed, get out of the goddamn business. You don't respect business. Get out. Honestly, I was like, not tonight. Have you not done enough?
And, you thought that was going to lead to the finish. He hits a Busaiku knee, but Swerve kicks out. But Danielson fires up again. 2 more knees. Puts the submission on him. Won't tap. Snaps his fingers.
That's how you do it, Pete Doon.
Swerve taps. Danielson.
That's why there won't be a Danielson.
Yeah.
Danielson,
One of the
huge,
many reasons.
huge pep. Great celebration. He almost tiger drivered his son. Just amazing. Sige, take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, this was, in terms of the atmosphere, the work, the moment, this is one of the all-time iconic Immortal Pro Wrestling moments. This is why you watch. It's just funny how I reflect on my own life. I'm wearing, for Spotify, audio, wherever listeners, a very, very faded Yes, Yes, Yes t-shirt. I also wore this at WrestleMania 30 when I was privileged to attend. And the idea was, let's get started a family then. And I was like, well, we literally just got married last week. We're not going to wait a year or two. And I was like, I've told the story a million times. Right, we can go earlier than we think, but I'll have to go to New Orleans for this. My missus was like, well, the holiday to America. I'm obviously not going to say no to that. So I wore this to New Orleans, and I'm wearing it now. And just the two things between WrestleMania 30 and All Out 2024, like, that's when I was going to start a family, and now I've actually got one. It was just a wild sequence of events and how much my life has ran parallel to Bryan Danielson's career. So that was just a bit funny. But this is what you watch it for. This is a moment that will, best match I've ever seen live. Like a unbelievably euphoric, special, emotional masterclass. Just perfect. Absolutely perfect. And, you know, it was Danielson's night when he put over Swerve. I've said before, like, Swerve, the word cinema is just used like, it's stupid, but I mean, it's just kids using it. I don't really care. I don't get offended by it. Oh, and these two as well, obviously. Big, overgrown kids. Swerve Strickland is so good at the theater and the cinema and the body language of pro wrestling and making himself look so cool and badass. Like, I think he's so underrated almost, even though I watched this and thought, oh, Swerve's going to look weird without that belt. And hands up, I thought, he's going to get a little bit overshadowed by... I think he's going to be a transitional champion because Ospreay's here. He's absolutely smashed it. He's going to look weird without that belt now, Swerve. And that moment with the brush off, I know you're going to put it over. What I'm going to put over, other than, you know, like, I mean, that sort of that tiger suplex from the top rope, terrifying. Like, the way they built the drama, it was just absolutely out of this world. Like... Bryan Danielson is wrestling's preeminent genius and the greatest of all time. We've reached a point, and I don't want to get into this conversation now because we've not done it at work, but Punk Drew reached an idea of love within wrestling storytelling. It's been divisive for a long time, like Gargano, Ciampa. I love the Elite doing it, but then it kind of ran its course last year. This idea of love and why am I so violent and can I hurt my opponent? The idea of love in wrestling, I feel like it's reached a plateau and an idea and all the rest of it. Danielson does love as part of a wrestling match, and he doesn't do it to say, the idea of love has distracted me from my goal, like Punk. Or this idea of love means I can't hurt my friend in a wrestling match, and it's like, get over it. It's what you get paid to do. Danielson, being wrestling's preeminent genius, has gone, I'm going to use love in a wrestling match. I'm going to use the power of love to kick ass.
It was a bit of Zane Gunther, wasn't it? Looking at his wife. And then I'm going to have to play what's happened here. Like
I watched that angle afterwards where you see Swerve, who was unbelievable, like as a heel, like just kick his ass. And then Danielson fires back, and that person films it. And then Birdie starts bouncing and jumping up and down as Daniel starts to kick ass. What a big swing of I love you so much. What a big swing that is for people to go, is that a bit corny or whatever? It's just Danielson, man. He's the god. He's the GOAT. Like, this match was just absolutely phenomenal. But what I loved about that, I love you so much moment, and like the ultimate, it's the biggest swing ever for a fighting spirit spot. The biggest swing he could possibly do, where it's like, even the sickos might think, oh, is that a bit corny from Danielson? That's not the kind of melodrama that I want from a Danielson. Biggest swing ever, his biggest fire-up spot ever, only for Swerve to go, nah, I didn't hurt that Psycho. It's like, like, you just think, all right, okay, well, that's him, he's done. See you later, guys.
How would you get one more 2.99?
Half the talk, so I'll just keep talking.
How would you get one more 2.9 out of this? Cedric mentioned this morning when we were yet again talking about the spot for the 50th time, because that's what we did in the first hour of Sweet Chin Disco. The time and place for that spot.
Jack Perry went Dutch, but that's a whole different story.
I don't know. Cedric mentioned the example about like this match might have changed my life. Right? I'm speaking literally here. Of course, it was match of the year. Of course, it's like if you're there in the building, you're like, well, straight away you're putting on your all-time live, all that sort of thing. I have spent my entire life, virtually all of it, watching pro wrestling, all of it that I can remember watching pro wrestling. And I've spent all of that life having fairly sort of solidified in my head that Bret Hart is the greatest to do it, and how hard it is for somebody to then come and replace that, because it's not just something that you constantly still, it evolves, and his work evolves with the sport. You're also watching thinking, well, the years go by and I hold this opinion for even longer, and that opinion is only going to get more reinforced the more I watch it and the more older and stubborn I get. Brian might be better. And like that, I'm not telling somebody else to think that. I'm just saying I'm sitting here thinking Brian might be better than Bret. Brian might have replaced Bret in the thing that I have felt for pretty much all of my life. And not that this is the only match that you have as the evidence for it, but I think this was something of a tipping point for me. Something of a, not even for boring reasons, like, well, you do it for longer, or you do it against a wider range of opponents, or the different styles that you'd adapt to, because I think I can give you the Bret argument that stacks up to it, regardless of the time frames or whatever. But there was something about what I was feeling in this match for Bryan Danielson that I know that I have felt for other Bryan Danielson nights or other Daniel Bryan nights. And I know that, I know that those feelings were real because I felt them. And then when you listen to or read, in the case of other people speak on it, and how hard it is to unify anybody on absolutely anything anymore, and Bryan Danielson unifies everybody on how great Bryan Danielson is. So you kind of feel reassured in your take as well. And he said this was great as well, and it was only because it was him. There is probably I've said Sami Zayn about a comparison about using family and using melodrama, and there probably aren't many like him, because you watch and you want to just believe they're probably as decent as they look, those people. And there's not many examples like that. You know, I'll come in here and I'll talk about the punker. He'd hate me just as much as I'd hate him in real life. You know, I'm watching a TV show. Like Brian said on Wednesday, this wasn't a dig at Ospreay, it wasn't a dig at Punk or MJF or anybody else who throws the word best around. When he said, I'm the best wrestler in the world, what he then had to do.
It worked till 9 o'clock. Right.
It's going to be an easy shift compared to Sunday. What he had to do was then illustrate it with the veracity and the power and that performance and the way he did it. This was, this was proper pro wrestling magic. A unifying force that Bryan Danielson is in the kids, because there was two of them ringside having the time of their life. Not scared of
blading in front of his kid as well.
Not scared of the
He's
blood.
the best corny, the best artist. What was the best everything?
What was the Zack Sabre the Zack Sabre Jr.? I'm just going to do the double squeeze to let you know that now we're going to move into this reversal sequence. What was the little tell? I'm going to have to watch this back to see what the tell was to Birdie. He'd be like, everything's going to be all right now. I'm going to do this bit, because I don't mind them figuring out how the kids are gonna. Well, those kids are workers now. So, sorry about that. Your mom was a worker, your dad's a worker. So you mean, this was what you watch for. This is all the cliches that everybody's going to spout. It's because they're all true. Like this was as good as it gets. Like, honestly,
it's an astonishing match, like you say, and a lovely moment afterwards when Swerve was at Sweet Chin Disco. And Swerve was on stage and got the text from Bryan Danielson saying thank you and how that was, I think, his favourite match, he said.
Yeah.
We're not too disappointed to lose the AEW World title because he was crowd surfing a few hours later. But, like you say, just jaw-dropping from both of them.
On that, for Danielson to say that, right, and again, if we're going to back up what we've just said about this man and that you want to believe in him, the person, because that's applied now to pro wrestling. We talk about how wrestlers on X can't necessarily be either real or character. You've got to be one or the other. And I've had conversations / arguments with people online about like, have I just gone off Chris Jericho because I don't think I like the real life guy? The two are starting to bleed into one. And what you think of Danielson probably helps a situation like this, the general you, not even just me. For Danielson to say that when we know for a fact that he said the exact opposite about his last WrestleMania main event. And this is not a WWE AEW thing. This is
You like it? He likes WWE more.
Love it. Right, I do. And I think that if like I was going to be in that position, the WrestleMania of it all would probably overwhelm me. And he said it, and I knew kind of that chapter of my career was done because I didn't feel it. He was buzzing to do the honours for Kofi Kingston, but even more buzzing to be on halfway through the show and get away early because it just wasn't it for him anymore, you know? And for him to say that to Swerve, there's something to that, there's something beyond just colleagues being good to one another and saying this was a great night. Like we talk about the feeling, AEW and the feeling. Bryan Danielson's got the feeling. Yeah. And good because he's the world champion and this run's going to be legendary. Yeah.
Very excited to see where they go next with this. We'll talk more about it on the Dynamite preview, of course. Let us know your thoughts on everything All In related, though, either in the comment section below or on X at WhatCulture WWE. Watch, they can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
Follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick.
Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow our brilliant producer at Adam Nicholas, and follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, as I said.
Adam Nicholas, who hasn't got a mic, but on the evidence of his introduction to our live show, should definitely have one right now.
Yes.
Because he was brilliant as well, teeing it all up for all of us.
WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts from. For Daily Wrestling Podcast, we'll be back to talk about Raw and look ahead to NXT later on today as well. But for now, this has been the All In Review. My thanks to Hamflett Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.